This video is brought to you by patreon.com/worsttake. Get access to exclusive live streams and Discord servers, on-screen shoutouts, and early access to some videos when you join now. Help make sure that we can continue to make content like this by supporting the Patreon. Links are in the description down below. What's up, and welcome to another position review. Today we're talking about the edge room, and we're going to be talking about the Cleveland Browns edge room. And I guess my opening statement for this room is, and I think a continuing theme for this room will be upgrade, 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 upgrade. Yesterday, or when I talked about the defensive tackles, I did not feel like that room was necessarily upgraded to the point to where it would be a good NFL defensive tackle room on day one, right? I thought that there were some things that need to happen, some young players that need to step up in order for that reality to become true. But as of right now, the defensive tackle room, I gave it a C-. Now, this edge room, much like that defensive tackle room last year, was a disaster. You had Jadeveon Clowney give you his worst season in years, and that's saying something because it's not like all of Jadeveon's seasons have been gems, but given that he played the majority of the season and still only got 2.5 sacks, I mean, that's just a dud of a season, right? Then you have guys who didn't contribute. Alex Wright got the lowest grade of all 119 edge rushers, and he was a key part of your rotation last year. It was a disaster. Thank goodness you had Myles Garrett, but you had nothing else. And I understand, and why I'm more lenient on the lack of bodies that they brought in the defensive tackle room is because of the massive shift that they made at edge. Because they didn't throw a bunch of money at D tackle. They threw some money at Dalvin Thomas. They threw some flyers out in the third round in a couple years at defensive tackle. But this is the room that they truly decided to invest in a much more meaningful way. And I think that's going to reflect in my grade, in my overall feelings of this room, and why I feel like even though that defensive tackle room is one injury away from being the same bad defensive tackle room that it was last year, why I don't think that it's going to get as bad as it was last year, because this edge room is a completely different story. So let's look at the room. Let's do an overview. I'm going to read off all the names on the list and tell you where the guys who are ranked, according to Pro Football Focus, is where they're ranked. You have Myles Garrett, who was number 1 out of 119 edge rushers. You have Zadarius Smith, who was number 13 out of 119 edge rushers. You have Ogbonnia Okoronkwo, who was brought in from the Houston Texans last year, who I believe is ranked at number 29. Alex Wright, who I just mentioned, was ranked at 119th. Isaiah McGuire, who you drafted in third round. Isaiah Thomas, who was a standout for a 7th round pick. And then Sam Kamara, Jeremiah Martin, and Lonnie Phelps. So when I look at the bottom of this roster and what it says about who might make the team, I'm not sure about how many edges and defensive tackles combined that they're going to keep. Since there's a new defensive coordinator, I try to keep an open mind with the position slots because it's just different with every coach. Some guys keep 10, some guys keep 8, some guys keep 12, right? We ain't going to know until Jim Schwartz does it here in Cleveland. So guessing it is going to be kind of a wild goose chase, in my opinion. So what we can do with him, or with this room, is look at the bottom of it and see, hey, do any of these guys have a chance? Now, Lonnie Phelps might be the most familiar name out of all the guys below Isaiah Thomas. He was a standout at Kansas State. Some people thought he would be a draft pick. Jeremiah Martin, who I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know much about. And then Sam Kamara, who, again, I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know much about him either. So honestly, I think none of these three guys are going to make the roster. Maybe Lonnie Phelps makes the practice squad. I do think there's a good chance at that. Or maybe Sam Kamara makes a practice squad. I don't know, 25, he's kind of old. So I doubt he makes a practice squad. So I think they're probably going to go in the direction of Lonnie Phelps making a practice squad. You look at the draft picks, and you look at everybody else. You know, Miles is a lock to make the team. You know, Zadarius Smith is a lock to make the team. You know, Okoronkwo is a lock to make the team. So that's 3 locks. Alex Wright, close to a lock. Isaiah McGuire is a lock to make the team. So we're really just looking at Isaiah Thomas here, somebody who's kind of teetering on the edge. Here's what I think people have to remember is that Jim Schwartz is going to use the edge position a little bit differently, right? So Miles and Zadarius play one position at edge, and I think Alex Wright and Isaiah Thomas play the backup positions to Miles and Zadarius. I think Isaiah McGuire plays a backup spot to Okoronkwo, and I think that's kind of how you end up with those 6 guys there. Ogbonia, he's kind of a speed, kind of twitchy, get him outside shoulder guy. You're going to want to do a little bit of that with not Isaiah Thomas, but Isaiah McGuire. He's kind of a similar skill set there. IT and Alex Wright, they're more traditional edge. You could put them at 3 tech as well. So I think that's probably where we're going to be here. If we're looking at the starting rotation, it's obviously going to be Myles Garrett, Zadarius Smith, and I think there's going to be a fair amount of spots for Double O in this lineup. I've always had a different view of what Double O's role was going to be with this defense. I think a lot of people saw him get signed and thought that he would be an anchor next to Miles. I think what they've wanted for a long time with this defensive line is not only 2 anchors, Miles plus 1, but they've always looked for somebody who could be, let's call him a rover, right? Somebody who can go inside, outside shoulders, play up, stand up, do a little linebacker, and really stress these defenses out. I showed you when I went through Zadarius Smith tape, when I went through Dalvin Tomlinson tape, and when I went through Pittsburgh Steelers tape, how defenses use the attention of somebody like a Cam Hayward or a Myles Garrett or Zadarius Smith that they're going to attract to kind of suck in offensive linemen so they can sneak somebody fast behind them. Now, I think they're going to try to run a couple interesting 3-man kind of like blitz packages between him, Myles Garrett, Obo, and then they're probably going to roll in maybe a Grant Delpit, maybe a JOK in somewhere there to take advantage of if they adjust and leave a gap in the middle. So there's a lot of different ways that you can use Miles when you kind of play him off of somebody. If you want an analogy that'll make this more clearer in a visual way, think of it like giving Myles Garrett a pick and roll partner, right? Myles Garrett is the big in the pick and roll, and you need somebody a little bit smaller, a little bit more agile with that skill set to run the other half of the pick and roll, right? That's what Obo is here for. I think that's what Okoronkwo does really well for this team. Best case scenario is that he's a great pick and roll partner for not only Zadarius Smith, but Myles Garrett. And that's what they want to see happen there. You can also rotate in, use some different styles of meshes and twists and stunts with other guys on this team. But I think that's mainly what Obo is going to be doing here. And he's going to be able to take advantage of that. So think of it kind of like giving the defensive lineman or an edge rusher a pick and roll partner in order to kind of further confuse offensive linemen or get rid of chip blocks or running back blocks, tight end blocks, anything like that, double teams. This is how you try to avoid it. This is the evolution of the game on defensive line. People have used the analogy in the past that the defensive line is kind of like basketball, and I don't think that's ever been more true than it is today, because you really could watch some of this stuff and they're literally stealing some things from basketball. I've seen Pittsburgh run a pick and roll before and it worked. It was great. So I'm just letting you know, like, it's moving towards that direction where you're seeing certain concepts that you would see in basketball on a defensive line. It's quite fascinating. But when I also did this with defensive tackles, so who are the supplemental players in this room who are going to help the defensive edge rushers do what they need to do? Jim Schwartz obviously goes without discussion. His new scheme is going to be helpful towards getting these guys free. It would be nice to see what Miles can do with a more experienced defensive coordinator at the helm. He had one in early in his career, but he wasn't fully Myles Garrett yet. Now, when he's full powers Myles Garrett, let's see what he can do with a experienced defensive coordinator. Some other supplemental guys, JOK, I think is going to be real helpful again, running some of these like delayed blitzes, just taking advantage of the space that's going to open up because guys are going to be trying to open towards Miles, and maybe they can't get away with getting a quick block off on Zadarius Smith like they were on Jadeveon Clowney. Taki is another one I think they're going to use like that. Grant Delpit, because I think the Browns corner is going to be interesting. I don't think they're going to be sending a lot of corner blitzes, right? I don't think they're going to send Denzel. I don't think they're going to send Martin Emerson. I don't think they're going to send Greg Newsome all that often. But I do think if they send anybody, it's going to be Grant, because Grant showed himself to be an exceptional tackler last year, and pretty good in short areas. I think they're going to play him closer to the line of scrimmage than I think a lot of people are anticipating. So I would think Grant's going to be helpful in this role. And I think Ronnie McLeod is another one who's going to be helpful here. When we look at depth, I think that there is reasonable depth, right? I have an analogy for depth. For anybody who knows how to change a tire, you will be familiar with what I'm about to say, right? There's 3 levels of preparedness for when your tire goes out on the side of the road. You could be spare tire guy, who you could do the whole repair right there. Don't even got to take it to the shop. That's how deep you are, right? That's the best level of depth that you can be for an NFL team, is be the dude with the spare tire, the full spare tire. Sometimes some position groups require that you have a full spare tire, right? Just like some cars that are bigger require that you can't just put it on a donut because it sits too high. Offensive linemen are often in a position where it's like, hey, you got to have a spare tire there because somebody's going to blow a wheel. So that's the number 1 level of preparedness. Number 2 level of preparedness is donut. Do you have a donut, right? A donut is a very small tire. For those of you who don't know, it's made like completely out of rubber. Don't even have air in it. It's literally made so you can drive to the tire place and get a tire put on. People be driving on them more than they should, but it's made so you can drive to the tire place without getting a tow if you're in the middle of nowhere, and get your tire changed. And then there is, well, let's just get a can of Fix-A-Flat in the trunk. Least level of preparedness. You don't have that. You got that Fix-A-Flat in your trunk. You might as well have nothing. You got nothing, right? I think that the depth on this defensive edge room is, I would rate it donut level, right? You got something. You could, if Miles has to miss a game, knock on wood. If Zadarius has to miss a game, knock on wood, the world is not over. You can cook up a little bit of something with Ogbo, with Alex Wright, Isaiah McGuire, and Isaiah Thomas, enough to make up for one of those guys going down for a couple of weeks. You don't want to roll the rest of the season with them. They're not spare tires, but you can roll with it for a week, maybe a quarter. You know what I mean? Short-term solution, you got it. I'm not panicking if somebody goes down in this edge room like I would panic if somebody goes down that D-tackle room, because we got Fix-A-Flat right there, right? And honestly, it's only Dalvin Tomlinson that can get hurt that really changes things in that D-tackle room. But if he does, oh my God, it's a bad thing. This room, like, Miles could miss a game or two, and I think we wouldn't be terrible. We wouldn't be good, but we wouldn't be terrible. And that's just enough to get you in the donut category when it comes to your depth. So overall, what would I give this edge room? Last year was such a disaster. Such a disaster. It is amazing that they have not only been able to upgrade this room to the point to where it's not just not a disaster. I would argue it's pretty damn good. You have 3 guys ranked in the top 30 of edge rushers here. You have two guys who rank in the top 10 of pressures in the NFL last year. I mean, if things go to plan, if this team stays healthy, this could be one of the better edge rooms in the NFL. The only thing holding it back is that they don't have a young, like Alex Wright hasn't developed into a viable, real pass rushing option. That's the only thing. If Alex Wright on a rookie deal has developed into somebody you could even think about being opposite of Miles if he needs to, if he does that during the course of the year, this is an A+ room. But as it stands right now, that's the one piece they're missing. They don't have that dude, the young guy off the bench who looks like he's going to looks like he's a step or two away from becoming a starter to make me feel real good, right? They just don't got the spare tire in the trunk. They just have the donut. That puts them at a B+. I would love to give them an A. I think they have the potential to get to the A during the season, but right now I have to give them a grade of just a B+. And given where you started, it is amazing that this defensive line has combined for a grade of a C- and a B+, because outside of Myles Garrett, one of the worst defensive lines I've seen on a professional football team last year. I don't even know if I want to say one of, because I can't remember one that I would even put in the categories in them last year. That's how bad they were. I don't think people talk about it enough. I think we kind of forgot because we didn't have to watch the Browns for the last few months, but one of the worst defensive lines last year ever in modern football. It was pathetic to watch every Sunday. It truly was. So B+ here, C- there. It might not feel like a huge victory if you wanted all A+ across the board, but that just wasn't realistic given what they were last year. But this is a huge win. This is a huge upgrade. But that's my thoughts. Let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Y'all have a great day. Have a good night.